So we've had some people ask us about what C. diff was. We have some comments on what C. diff was. So I'm going to explain in detail what actually C. diff is and how C. diff comes to people and how they end up getting C. diff. So I went through a bunch of stuff to try to figure out what was going on, and we went through a bunch of blood work. Blood work come back good. Everything come back good, and so they went to the couple days later. I went back to the emergency room because I was still having problems. Went back to the emergency room again because I was still having problems. And then finally, the doctor said, let's do a stool sample so that we could see what was going on. I was vomiting. Had diarrhea. I was nauseated. I was really bad. And I was so sick. And so he decided to do a stool sample. So he waited 2 days. I had to wait on the stool sample. Once I gave him the stool sample, they give you this little cup that goes inside the toilet, and you actually poop inside of it. So they did that, and once they did that, they tested the stool. So once they tested the stool, they come to find out I had C. diff. So in between this time, I was so sick that I was vomiting and couldn't hold my head up. I was so sick. C. diff about killed me. It was a really, really, really contagious infection. The doctors had to literally come in with shields on, and everything was protected, 100% protected, everything. So once they figured out it was C. diff, they admitted me into the hospital because I had went back again to the hospital because they had called me and said to come back to the hospital that I've got a really severe infection. So come to find out what actually caused my C. diff was I had a sinus infection before this. And the sinus infection, they gave me antibiotics. So once I got the antibiotics, then they gave me, the sinus infection was still there. So then they gave me more antibiotics. So after the second or third round of antibiotics, your body gets immune to the antibiotics, and basically that's what happened. So my cause of C. diff was actually uh, antibiotics. So they transferred me to a bigger hospital than what the facility I was at. This facility I was at was a smaller facility that couldn't handle it. Had to end up going to a GI doc, and once I went to the GI doc at this particular hospital said, okay, so he started treating it again with antibiotics. And I was in the hospital for like 2 weeks or so, just pumping antibiotics. So he said, let's go do another colonoscopy and see what's going on. So they did a colonoscopy. They found the C. diff again in my colon. So in the meantime, this whole time I'm sick as a dog, can't hardly hold my head up. I'm still sick. I couldn't even hold my head up. I was puking. I was running a high fever, it was really bad. And this infection is so contagious that, I mean, just being in contact with somebody can cause them to have C. diff. So they really took a lot of precautions at the hospital. And then once I took and did all that, and they did the colonoscopy, they said, okay, so the doctor come to my room that next morning, and he said, this is our options. He said, either one, you can sit here and die, or two, I can do what they call a fecal transplant. So if you're not familiar with a fecal transplant is where they literally go into your rectum with a light, just like they would with GI. They go in there with a light, and they actually literally get you a donor. Just like if you were doing any kind of other transplant, you had to have a donor. And then once the donor gets approved, then they will take the donor stool and put it inside of you, which is literally how they transplant and then they take all the old stool out of your body. So they actually have to put new stool in there to prime your body, to get your body to where your body will actually react to the new stool that they're submitting in your body. Is there a lot of complications was another question. Yes, there is a lot of complications that go along with it. still having a lot of major complications, and this was back in 2016. I still have a lot of major complications from it. And it's not something that most people in today's society would ever want or would want to give to their worst enemy, because it is really, really super terrible. And with that being said, the body can only take so many antibiotics. So all these doctors that giving antibiotics and giving antibiotics, it's not good. It gets your body immune to the antibiotics. It also opens you up for C. diff. It opens you up for a lot of different infections because your body gets immune to the antibiotics. And once your body gets immune to it, they just keep pumping you. And a lot of people, you know, when they get a sniffle or a cold, the first thing they want is an antibiotic for it. Well, that's not the best route, because antibiotics cause other things to happen other than just a simple antibiotic. Especially if they start giving you 2 or 3 rounds of antibiotics, it causes major problems in your digestive system. It causes major problems with your immune system. It causes major problems, just like with C. diff. C. diff is an antibiotic infection, because basically you can't get any stool out, and the diarrhea is so severe with C. diff that you literally have to keep drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking, because you'll get dehydrated from all the vomiting and all the stuff that's just dehydrating you so much in between the C. diff. And the C. diff is a very, very hard thing to beat. It's not an easy infection that a doctor can actually win on. And I was one of the 2 people to ever get a fecal transplant at this particular hospital I went to. And so I was really nervous. I was really scared, because this is only the 2nd fecal transplant this doctor's done at this particular hospital. So of course it makes you where you're scared. You don't know which way, what's going to happen, where you're going to be at, or anything. So, and once I done that, I went through that scenario and got all that done. And here in 2025 or 24, I started having a lot of problems with my stomach. My stomach's swollen, distended. It's really bad. Doctors don't know what the problem is. Doctors just tried and tried and tried everything that they can, and it's very painful. I've had TARP surgery. I've had to have 2 TARP surgeries done. Now I'm actually having to go to a major university to literally get some more insight on what's going on, because the doctors doesn't know, because CAT scan's not showing it, MRI's not showing it. So doctors rely on that. But then when you look at the blood work and you see the blood work's coming back abnormal, showing that there's something wrong. But they don't see it on a CT scan. They can't find it on an X-ray. They can't find it on an MRI. But does it still exist? Yes, it still exists, because you're still swollen, you're still descended, you're still sick, you're still hurting. I have a suprapubic catheter in, and our next video we'll talk about it, what a suprapubic catheter is and how you end up with a suprapubic catheter. But my stomach is so distended that it's literally pushing on my bladder, and caused me to have to get a suprapubic catheter, because I couldn't control my bladder. I couldn't control anything. With C. diff, I went through the same thing. I had to use in and out catheters, because with C. diff, it went to my bladder and caused my bladder to start having problems. So it led me into TARP surgery. It led me into other surgeries back in 2016. It led me into a lot of surgeries. I had a lot of surgeries in between that time, trying to get everything that needed to be done. And when you're under anesthesia for as long as I was, and as long as period of time as I was under anesthesia, it literally caused my other organs not to want to wake up, not want to do what they're supposed to do. And it's really hard. So one thing that I can tell you is, if you like this video, you subscribe to our channel, you subscribe, comment, do whatever you like. and we'll answer them through video and get as much video out as we can. So for all means, like, subscribe, send us comments. If you have any questions, we'll be grateful to answer them. As far as what I went through myself, I can't say what other people have went through or how they dealt with it, but this is just real life what I've had to deal with, and I want to bring it out to the YouTube people on what I've actually done, the TikTok people, and everybody that is there, so that I can let them understand how much this stuff is with these doctors and these hospitals, and how they're covering up, and how they think that if it doesn't show up on a CAT scan or an X-ray or an MRI, what is it? They don't know. So with that being said, I've had doctors say, a doctor once told me, he said that an insurance company would rather for us to say that you have cancer than to have to keep going with a patient and literally have to keep paying all this money out. They'd rather for you to go on Medicaid, Medicare, whatever it may be in your state. So, and that really is a really big thing with the insurance industry. The insurance industry doesn't like to approve a lot of stuff. You have to really buckle down and fight with the insurance company to get them approved stuff that actually needs to be approved. And a lot of times it's out of the doctor's hands. It's more in the insurance hands that they're not approving stuff, or they're not getting the stuff done fast enough or stuff like that. And it really hurts the patient, because the patient is really in bad shape and they need it, but the insurance companies are not wanting to approve it, or saying that, okay, well, let's do this, let's do physical therapy and all this before we actually pay for him to have surgery or her to have surgery or whatever it may be. And insurance companies are really bad about that. But that's on another video. But C. diff is a very hard thing to beat. I don't wish C. diff on anybody, because C. diff is so hard on the body that, a fecal transplant's really hard. It's not something easy that they can do really easily, and it's really hard because you literally have to use somebody else's poop and basically hope for the best. But, they test it for all kinds of diseases and all that before you actually do it. So they make sure that that person doesn't have any kind of disease that may carry over into your body. So they treat it as if you was having a kidney transplant, heart transplant, or whatever kind of transplant you're having. So like, subscribe, comment, and we will see you on our next video.